I want to talk about UFO disclosure, whether it comes this December or whether it comes another 20 years from now. One way or the other, right? There's going to be a lot of angry people. And let me tell you something. It's not going to be people like me or people who watch this channel or listen to this podcast. It's not going to be you. I mean, we already know that the government's been covering this stuff up for a long time. It's going to be people out there who debunkers. They're going to be it might be a fake kind of anger, right? To hide their ignorance. But there's going to be a lot of scientists out there and a lot of people in news media who are going to be outraged publicly about once they find out that this thing has been covered up for as long as it's been covered up. And they realize that this whole time that there's been an extraterrestrial presence on Earth and that there have been people within the government keeping this secret all this time. There's going to be outrage. There's going to be anger. It's going to be a daily thing for a long time. You know, how come you didn't tell us? Why did you keep this secret for so long? Because here's why. And this is why the anger is going to be because all these years now, these people have been saying certain things. They laughed all of this stuff off every time it was brought up, right? News reporters, lazy. News organizations, big news organizations, Washington Post, New York Times, right? They never really looked into this over the years. Sure, it was the New York Times in 2017 that broke that once the story with the leaked videos and the ATIP program and all that stuff, right? That's, yeah, okay, they did that. I mean, but they had a lot of information. They just couldn't, that was being presented to them. They had people to go on the record and talk about it. And plus, they actually had the evidence of the videos. So they really couldn't, turn a blind eye to that. However, but they pretty much, over all these years, they've pretty much scoffed at everything else. I mean, they always make a joke about Roswell and any other alleged UFO crashes that have been talked about. They don't even investigate it, not thoroughly, ever, not even close to thorough. I mean, if at all. Basically, what the news media has done over all these years, they've pretty much acted as press agents for the Pentagon when it comes to UFOs. I mean, they might question other things, right? But when it comes to UFOs, they pretty much acted like they basically just read the Pentagon press releases on during their news programs and then move on to the next subject after a good chuckle with the rest of the news anchors, right? So they're going to have the news media all of a sudden acting outraged and they can't believe it. What's going on? They're going to be angry. Right. And then you're going to have a lot of scientists across the world who have scoffed at this, all the time for years, decades. I mean, just, I see people like smart people, smart scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson, shows up on right now. He's been making the rounds on a lot of different kinds of TV programs like late night with Stephen Colbert and all that, because he's basically has a new book to sell. So he's going to show, because they'll invite him on these shows, morning talk shows, news shows, late night shows, all these shows. He'll show up and talk. And a lot of times the subject of aliens is brought up, and, he'll just say, he'll make a joke out of it. If it's real, like one of the things that he said that's just still incredible to me is these about people who get abducted. Why don't you steal an alien ashtray or something like to that effect? I mean, well, wow. I mean, to make a comment like that. I mean, obviously these aliens don't want us to know that we're that they're here. So I mean, obviously he hasn't looked into this subject. I mean, he doesn't understand it whatsoever to make a comment like that. I mean, people are basically incapacitated, and in fact, there have been efforts by different people over time. I mean, one of the very first abduction cases, Antonio Villas-Boas tried to steal some object that reminded him of a clock, right? And one of the aliens came over and stopped him from doing it, took it away from him. But for the most part, after that, all the abduction stories that you hear about, people, they're pretty much frozen. They're like paralyzed. They can't do anything. The aliens prevent them from pretty much doing anything. So I don't know, like again, people like that treat it like a joke. So how's someone like him going to? How's someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye the Science Guy? These people who make a joke out of UFOs and flying saucers and the whole idea of an extraterrestrial presence. How are they going to act? They're going to be very upset, and because they're going to look like fools. When you're looking back, people are going to look back at their comments, right, and say, "Look what he said 3 years ago. Look where we're at now." So they're going to feel like fools. So they're going to be angry about it. They're going to be going on TV all the time talking about how angry they are with this whole situation, why they were kept in the dark about this. And in a way, rightly so, right? I'm angry about it right now, right? But once it comes out, I'll be like, well, I'll feel relief that the truth is finally coming out, because I already recognize the fact that there is something here and something's been going on. But a lot of these people are going to be very upset. And of course, I think the most anger is going to come from the debunker corner, right? These people right now, I mean, these people have been digging themselves a hole for a long time. You go online, you read some of the comments from people like Stephen Greenstreet and Jason Colavito and Ross Pomeroy and Mick West and Keith Clore. I mean, there's a rogues gallery of names out there of people, science writers and whatnot, who pretty much are digging themselves a deep hole in this whole thing, and they're pretty basically ignorant on the subject. They don't really study it. They never looked into it, so they're going to be extreme. They're going to show it's going to be like a fake anger actually coming from them. Basically, that will be an effort to hide their how ignorant they looked in the past, because they're going to have to try to save face. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. So you're look out for that. So if we do get disclosure, say in December or next year, or and however that disclosure happens, whether the government finally somebody steps to a podium and tells the truth, or whether something happens where it just becomes undeniable, a civilian somehow comes up with the evidence and presents it, one way or the other, right? It's going to happen at some point, right? It's inevitable. It has to. You can't cover this up forever. In fact, I always talk about this. I really believe that one of the reasons the Pentagon has started to loosen up over the last few years is because of technology, human technology. Where people are capturing stuff all the time anymore. Now, I've been seeing a lot of different things on Twitter, different kinds of UFOs captured on cell phones. I mean, not all of them are fake, right? At some point, right, something's going to happen here where it's just going to be, where there's going to be like 1,000 people that are going to film something, and it's going to become, wow, this is not man-made, and it's over. I mean, another Phoenix Lights incident, something like that, anything like that, something big that's going to happen at some point where it becomes undeniable. If you have 1,000 people pointing up a cell phone camera at the sky, filming a gigantic triangle or a boomerang-shaped object that's the size of 5 football fields passing through the sky, right, from all different viewpoints and different angles, right? And you have 1,000 different videos, versions of this from different viewpoints. It's going to become undeniable. So that's why I think one of the reasons we having this slow disclosure, it's the Pentagon's realizing, well, we got to cover our butts here. We got to at least say, yeah, we notice these things out there now. I mean, because years past, I mean, this has been going on for decades and decades, but it's only been recently, right? Because look at our technology. I've talked about that before, of course, too. But yeah, these people, when it does come out, you're going to see people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, all these people that have pretty much scoffed at it, laughed at it, talk about aliens like it's a joke, it's impossible. Why? I don't know. Why anybody would think it's impossible or crazy when you really think about it, it doesn't make any much sense, especially considering the size of this universe that we're in. It's incomprehensible, the size. It's just, obviously there has to be something else out there, and if there is, obviously, some of it has to be more advanced than we are. It's just in the cards to think that the human race is the first intelligent race in all these billions of years, right, of being around to get to a point where we are now. We're sending rockets, into space and people in space shuttles and all that. I mean, you have to think, if we're doing that, right, and we didn't start flying until the early 1900s, and we're already in space. We had people on the moon already. Could you imagine something else out there that's, even, 1,000 years more further along than we are technologically, or 100,000 years, or 1,000,000 years, or 100 million years? Of course, this galaxy, the universe, has been around long enough that there's no question that there's something out there. Obviously, more than billions of different intelligent life forms are out there. I'm sure of it. In fact, I also believe that we also have more than one. Of course, I do believe this. I do believe that the dominant alien life form on this planet. It's most certainly, it seems to be these gray aliens with the praying mantises that are their overlords, right? I think, and apparently there's some sort of reptilian creatures involved too with that whole. But there's been all different kinds of reports over the decades since at least the late 1940s of other sorts of creatures. In fact, there's some things I want to be going over in my podcast over the next couple of weeks about these different kinds of beings that come to our planet, in addition to the dominant species that seems to be up to no good, apparently.